looking at how to solve systems of equation using graphing. If you know how to graph, it's pretty simple, as long as it's something that will graph and cross really nicely at the intersection points. Hello? Okay, yes. All right. Oh, and at the end of this class, you're supposed to run by the office. Okay. All right, so another method we are going to use today is called substitution. And I'm going to introduce this using some word problems, mostly because these are very helpful in solving word problems, right? So we're going to kind of look at this beginning with word problems here. So, the percentage of female doctors has risen steadily since 1960. The equations below can be used to model the percentage of male or female doctors in given years. We actually looked at some of this data when we were doing line of best fit. You guys remember seeing a question about, actually I think that one was about lawyers. There was definitely a lawyer question. We may have also looked at doctors too, but there was definitely a lawyer question that you guys saw. So, the percent of male doctors is M of t equals 98 minus 0.54 t. Percent of female doctors is F of t equals 2 plus 0.54 t. In both equations, t is the number of years since 1960. So, according to the models, what percentage of doctors are female today? Let's change this because obviously it's been a couple years since I'm just going to change this right here and save it so I don't have that. So, we are in 2021 and we want to plug this in so that we can find the percent of female doctors, so we'll be using this equation. But T is the number of years since 1960. So, what do we have to do to figure out what number we're going to plug in? We're not going to plug in 2021. Good. So we'll do 2021 minus 1960, and that'll tell me the number of years since 1960, right? And so that'll give me 81. So it's been 81 years since this equation began to apply, right? So in 1960. So we will plug in 81. So if we plug in 81 into this equation, 2 plus 0.54 times 81, and what are you getting? 45 point what? 74%. So this equation would estimate that 45.74% of doctors are female today. Yes, Ethan. We're in the year 2021, and we're subtracting 1960 because we want to know how long it has been since 1960. Because it tells us for these equations, T is the number of years since 1960. So this equation, we don't just plug in the year because it's not set up that way. Okay? Okay? So that's just sort of like some review stuff. We've done that before. It's just plugging in a number, right? All right, so according to the models, this is where we're going to get into our substitution. When will the percentage of doctors who are female equal the percentage of doctors who are male? Okay? So, our equations up here were M of t equals 98 minus 0.54 t, and F of t equals 2 plus 0.54 t. So, in both cases, these functions right here, M of t and F of t, those are like our y values, right? We can use M of t and F of t as that function notation, but we could also just use it as like a y value. All right, so I'm going to write it with a y here. So for males, it's minus 0.54 t, and for females, it's plus 0.54 t. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. So, the idea of substitution here, we want to know when these two things are equal to each other. So both of these give us the percentage of doctors, right, for male and female. We want to know when those are equal to each other. So if we want to know when they're equal to each other, we can just set these equations equal to each other. So we can say 98 minus 0.54t equals 2 plus 0.54t. This is called substitution because since these both equal y, we can take this and replace the y right here to end up getting the two equal to each other. Alright, so now we have an equation and we can solve it. So Peyton, what would we do first to solve that equation?
First off, would you subtract 98?
I would move the t's first.
Oh, so you add 0.54p.
Yeah.
And that gives you 108.
Yep, 1.08t.
Then would you subtract the 2t?
That's a plus sign.
Oh,
Yes, subtract that 2 though.
that'd be 96. And then would you divide?
Perfect. And if we do that in our calculator, what do we get whenever we divide 96 divided by 1.08?
88.8. So you put 88.8 repeating? And you only got one decimal point? Or does it vary?
I drew the line over top of it, so that tells me that it goes on forever. In this case, it's the year, so usually I'll try to tell you what to round to on that, but one decimal place is probably okay. Or you can just avoid it altogether and put the line over top of it. If it's on Canvas, I'll tell you what to round to because I can't have you put the line over it. If you're writing it down, you could just put the line over that 8. But this really isn't the answer because, I mean, it's going to get us to the answer. But if I say, when will the percentage of doctors who are female equal the percentage of doctors who are male, and you tell me 88.8. That is like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Would you add that?
We need to find out what year.
We need to find out what year it was. So remember, our T is years since 1960. So what this means is we got 88.8 repeating years
Also, since your t.
since
We need to add that.
1960. Okay? So you could tell me 88.8 repeating years since 1960, but a better way to say that would be to take 1960, you know what, plus 88.8. I need to back up. I think I messed up earlier. And we will get 2048.8 repeating. So somewhere between 2048 and 2049. I think I messed up back here. I'm going to let you guys. This one's fine. I messed up on part A. See if you figure out what I did wrong on part A. Should have been 61 years, not 81. I was subtracting that in my head and did not do it correctly. Yeah. You need to stop me on that. Yeah. I realized once I got this answer, I was like, oh, 88.8 is longer away. I subtracted that incorrectly. So that should have been 61 right there. Let's go back and correct this. And if we put that into the calculator, we'll get a different answer.
So this way you have to rewrite it if you were on
34.94.
That sounds better.
Yeah, that makes more sense too. That's probably closer to accurate.
So we need to do 1960 and then just re-add it.
I mean, the only thing I just subtracted incorrectly there. So, you should do exactly what I told you to do.
Yeah.
It's just 2021 minus 1960 equals 61 and not 81. I just messed up there. And then, so here, we have our answer for part B. Okay, questions? I think I'm okay on this one, but double check me. What did you get differently? I was taking their word for it. You're right, it's 14. It should be. I think I just started writing down what somebody was saying. 2044. No, it's 8. 8. No, it's right. And it rounds up. It's right. Right?
It's not. It's 8, 0, 8, so it's 8. And then
8.
6, 8. 14.
14. Carry your 1. 9 plus 1 is 0. Or 10. Carry your 1.
Yeah, that's not really.
I did
The way you
I
have
put
it
the
read,
8 under the 9.
Yeah, you can't do that.
no, it's just it's the way you have it written on the board. It's just a little crooked. So it looks like the 8 is.
Yeah, but it's not because your decimal place is right here. Right here. Okay? Alright, let's look at our next problem. Alright, now, this is a problem that is increasing in antiquity here, even though I would say probably in the United States, at least in rural areas, we probably never really had internet cafes that much around here. It would be a place that you go to use the internet before the internet was widespread. So, like, most people did not have internet in their homes, so they would go to a business that had computers and internet that you could use. So I never used an internet cafe here, but I did use one several times whenever I went to Mexico, whenever I was in college. Because internet was not as widespread there, so people did not have internet in their homes, so they did have several internet cafes, and I would go use them sometimes to like email my family and stuff back at home. The only place I see internet cafes now is I think sometimes it may be used as a different name for like the sweepstakes places. Sometimes what's that?
There are some
Dude.
What is GTA 5?
Those aren't.
Well, they are.
No, they're not. I promise you, they're not.
I don't know what.
You can go to publicly use it. And sometimes I rent cars and then they explode.
Oh. So, anyway, I think if you see something that says Internet Cafe now, that it's probably not the same as what we're talking about in this particular problem. I think they use it for like the online gambling stuff. And
It's a public place to use a computer. It's the most basic form.
yeah,
Dude,
but
that's not what it says.
So this is talking about, they were never that common around here. Like, we never really had them much in rural places. But in countries where there were less widespread internet use, it was more common. So at Surf City Business Center, you can surf the internet for $3.95 per day plus 5 cents per minute. Bite to Eat Cafe charges $2 per day plus 10 cents per minute. Okay. And this was more or less like how they would charge whenever I would go there. Like, the computer would have like a timer that would show up. So like however long you use the computer, you were charged like a base fee plus extra based on that. How much would it cost at each location if you only need to use the internet for 10 minutes? Okay, so only for 10 minutes. Let's start with Surf City. You've got $3.95 plus 5 cents per minute. So I would be doing $3.95 plus I'd have to pay 5 cents for my 10 minutes that I would use the internet for. Okay, so somebody type that into the calculator for me. What we got? $4.45. All right, at Bite to Eat, let's see. Julian, tell me what we would do at the Bite to Eat Cafe. Good. That's 10 cents for every minute. So if we use this for 10 minutes, what have we got to do there? We got to multiply that by 10, right? Because that's our rate there. So if we do that, I think we're at $3. So if you only need to use the internet for 10 minutes, then Bite to Eat is your best place to go. Okay. I want you guys to try the same thing, but for 2 hours on Part B. Because they're charging you for every minute that you use. So you got to take that rate per minute and multiply it by the number of minutes used. Okay. All right, so try for Part B. What about if you're going to use the Internet Cafe for 2 hours? So for Surf City and Bite to Eat. Try it on your own first, and then we'll...
Oh, dang, that really isn't that bad.
No, honestly, for 2 hours, that's pretty cheap.
They're making money. They let me do it. They're making a lot of money, actually. A lot of money for a person. We don't have many people. I mean, they're not really, like, once you get to 2 hours, yes, you're making a lot of money, but it's not a lot.
Not by 10 now, because instead of doing 10 minutes, we're doing 2 hours.
It's just 60.
It's really hard when it's just like burning
Now, do you have to graph these and all?
We're not going to. It's a one way that you could do it, but we're not going to.
Like, for example, the wrong thing. Times 10 by 4:45.
All right. So, somebody tell me what to do for Surf City. Vince, what do you think?
You do 3.95 plus 0.05. and you times that by 120.
All right. Why are you using 120?
Because 60 times 2 is
60 times 2 is 120 because you got to put minutes here, right? You're charged per minute, not per hour. And what do you get whenever you do that, Vince?
you get $9.09.
So same thing we did up here, but our 10 just turned to a 120 because our amount of time has changed, right? For the bite to eat, somebody besides Vince, tell me what to do. Jada? All right, so if you're going to use the internet for a longer amount of time, Surf City is the best place to go, right? Because they charge less per minute, but their base fee is higher. Assuming everything else is equal. All right, so now we have for what number of minutes of internet use in a day is Surf City's price equal to Bite to Eat's price? So in this case, we've got two equations. We haven't written them as equations yet, but we've got two equations. So let's write these as equations first. So for Surf City, y equals, so this time we'll say we don't know how many minutes we need, so let's just call it x minutes. So Hank, tell me what I could write that first equation for if I had x minutes.
395 plus 0.05x.
Perfect. Right, that x just represents our number of minutes. And then for Bite to Eat, two. Go ahead and finish. What else do we need, Peyton?
It's $2 or y equals $2 plus 10 cents x.
Perfect. Okay, so those are our two equations. So if we want to know when those two are equal to each other, right, then we can just take one of them and plug it in for the y here so that we're setting them equal to each other. So we can say $2 plus 10 cents times x equals $3.95 plus 0.05x. All right, Caroline, what would we do to solve that equation? We got 2 plus 0.10x plus 3.95 plus 0.5x. You can move the 2 first, but it's a little easier if you move the x's first. So let's move the x's first. You got to subtract. I would pick this one over here so that I would not get a negative. So we're moving that to the other side. Uh-oh.
It's 0.05.
So once we move that, then, Caroline, what are we going to do? Now subtract that 2. I'm running out of room here. I can do this, you can't. Alright, so we get 0.05x equals 1.95. And then, Caroline, what's my last step there? Good. Divide both sides by 0.05. And what do we get whenever we do that? Anybody got that for me? 39. And what is that? 39 minutes, hours, dollars, days? What are we talking about? Is minutes. So at 39 minutes, the price would be the same. So if you knew for sure you need to use the internet for 39 minutes, it would not matter which one you went to. Yeah, 39 minutes exactly. Okay, so this last question, we don't really have to do any more math. We sort of just have to put together what we know. So for what number of minutes of internet use in a day would you recommend Surf City as the most economical choice? So Surf City, was it cheap for short amounts or longer amounts? Longer amounts. Right here at 10 minutes, it cost more, but whenever we went to 2 hours, it cost less. So we know they equal each other at 39 minutes. So for Surf City, when would it be good to choose it over Bite to Eat? Right, so if you were going to use, so Surf City is the best choice. If you use the internet for more than 39 minutes. So 40 plus, it's better to use Surf City. Okay, questions? All right, let's try the next one. Okay, now this is probably something that hasn't gone out of date as much, except for possibly prices going up, although I don't know how accurate they were to begin with. So charter boat fishing for walleyes is popular on Lake Erie. The charges for an 8-hour charter, trip are as follows. So if you use Wally's, it's $200 for the boat rental plus $29 per person. And Pike's is only $50 for the boat rental, but they charge $60 per person. So if anybody ever chartered a boat out on the ocean, probably ocean, I mean, I guess you go Lake Erie, but probably you guys don't know Lake Erie. You have Owen. So like if you ever go to the beach and you want to go out fishing, get somebody to take you out like deep sea fishing, then this is likely sort of the model that will be used, because they're going, like, especially if you've got like a group that's going to rent like a whole boat out. If you're, I've never went on like a charter trip, but we did go one time like on it was more like a little bit bigger boat, and there was like lots of people there. We didn't know all the people on it, and my brother got really sick and threw up. So he can't do boats very well. And this is not entirely true. When I was in Mexico, we also chartered a boat, and it was just our family. It was me, my dad, my brother, my sister, and then my husband, although he was just my boyfriend at the time. We went out on this like little boat that we went out. And once again, my brother got sick, and we all had to go back and just go snorkeling instead because he was sick. So, yeah, my brother couldn't take it. I think he went a while back with some friends and actually didn't get sick, but when he was younger, he definitely couldn't do it. Each boat can carry a maximum of 10 people in addition to the crew. Write rules for calculating the costs for charter service by Wally's and by Pikes. When it says rules, it means equations. So for Wally's, raise your hand if you can tell me what the equation would look like. All right, Marley? Perfect. 200 plus 29 times our x. X being our number of people. Okay? And for Pikes, what do you think, Passion? Perfect. 50 plus 60x. Okay, any questions on getting those equations? Okay, so the next part asks us to determine which service is more economical for a party of 4 or for a party of 8. So if we got 4, we got Wally's. We would plug in 4 and 316. Check me on that.
Oh, it's 29.
Yep.
Oh, I had it down as 20. That's why it's so weird.
Yeah. And then here, 290. Yep, I think that's right. So if you only had 4 people going, Pikes would be better. But if you have 8 people going, Wally's is probably going to be the best because their per person charge is lower, right? What do we get for this one? What do we get here? 432. Is that right? So for this one, Wally's is best. Alright, so assuming that you want to minimize your cost, under what circumstances would you choose Wally's charter service? So what I want to know basically is where are they equal and when is Wally's better, above or below that number, right? So if I want to know when they're equal, just like we've been doing, these are both equal to Y, so we can just set them equal to each other. So we'd have 200 plus 29x equals 50 All right, Easton, tell me how to solve that. Perfect. Which one do you want to move? Okay, that's what I would do too. Avoid that negative. So 200 equals 50 plus 31x. Good. What would we do next, Easton? Sure would. All right, and then last step. You get like 40 something. Wait, 4.838. What is that? People, days, hours, months? People. So we got 4.838 people. So if you could possibly have 4.838 people, which you can't, they would be exactly equal to each other. So for Wally's, was Wally's cheaper for fewer people or more people? It was cheaper for more people when we tested it up here, right? So Wally's is better for 5 or more people.
What I did is I knew it had to be more than 4 because 5 was cheaper, so I just started plugging numbers and 5 was cheaper than, or 5 was cheaper for Wally, so I just put a few of both 5 more people.
You can just plug in numbers on this one, especially since we're dealing with like small numbers. But our goal here is the equations, like setting up the equations and learning that process. So I do want you to do that on every problem, even if you could plug in and figure it out. Okay? All right. Because sometimes, like, this particular situation may be a little, I mean, it's realistic because, you know, if you're going to charter a small boat, these probably are realistic things. But lots of situations are more complicated, like bigger, so you would need to set up those equations instead of just guessing. Okay, questions? Okay, so we have a worksheet that we are going to do, and if you work really, really hard, you can probably learn how to do it.
I already got.
Yeah.
So, what's my exam schedule? I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be on the computer, but yeah. Such a conversation. I'll take it. What days do we have to be here? I know there's Sunday. That's what I told you. So we're out. If you
Friday is exam day. You definitely have to be here for exam.
the day of.
No, it's teacher made.